Okay, good morning. So we're working our way through Siman Shin Hey. We're up to Sif Zayin. All the halachas of Bameh, Behema Yitzah, B'Shabbos, what an animal can go out wearing, whether it's malbush, whether it's protective clothing. So we're up to Sif Zayin. Chamor Yitzah B'Mardas. A chamor can go out with a cloth, a saddlecloth. Pirush Kamin Ukuf Cotton shemanichin ala chamor, some sorts of cloth you put on the sort of the back of the donkey, kolayim, kulay, kadei sheyischamem, that the donkey stays warm. V'hu shetei kshur lo me'erev Shabbos. This item of clothing has got to stay on. Has got to have been put there. It's got to be sort of tied there from before Shabbos. But for other animals to wear that, then it's less necessary. We'll see soon. The Mishnah Berurah explains because donkeys get very cold. More than other animals, and therefore for donkey it's appropriate, but for other animals not. And a donkey shouldn't go out with a saddle, even though it's tied on before Shabbos. Okay, let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Chamor sif kotzen chafei yotzei b'mardas. The mitzvah, the donkey gets very distressed when it's cold. The chamra afilu b'tkufas tamuz kriule. Chamor, I mean. Yeah, chamra afilu b'tkufas tamuz kriule. Even in the heat of the summer, the donkey is cold. V'nechshav kamalbush, and therefore this saddlecloth is considered a malbush. V'dafka kshura me'er Shabbos. Dafka if it's tied on before Shabbos. The oz gali daitoid me'esmol shestrichilekach, and therefore yesterday you've demonstrated that it's dedicated for this. Avlim kosher b'Shabbos, but if you tie it on Shabbos itself, also lotzes boy, then the donkey cannot go out wearing this. Because it wasn't sort of designated for such before Shabbos as an item of clothing. Okay, chamin ukuf cotton. I'm b'malbush srat shetzorach lema kamin ukuf gadol, because l'cher it's like a big saddle. It's a blanket that goes over the whole back of the animal, not just a small part. But if another animal were to wear this, other animals don't get so cold, and therefore it's a masui for them. It's not a necessary item of clothing. And the donkey shouldn't go out with an ukuf, with his saddle. Because in terms of the protection from cold, it doesn't really help because it's only a small thing on the back of the animal, and therefore it's considered a masui. The dafka mardas moshu munach al kol haguf. Dafka, this saddlecloth, the blanket, helps the warmth of the whole body. Mashenkin ukuf ein mechamim ela b'makom shemunach. A saddle, you know what a saddle is? It just goes on the back of the donkey, and it's just contained to quite a limited space, so it doesn't provide the warmth that this mardas does. Okay, carrying on. Sif ches mutza litein mardas ala chamor mipneatzina. You're allowed to place this saddlecloth, a blanket, over the donkey because of the cold. So on Shabbos itself, you can put it on the animal, but just don't tie it to the animal. To tie it on properly, you've got to sort of use the animal, lean on the animal, touch it, and therefore you're being mishtamish b'balei chaim. But a horse doesn't have the same distress from being cold as the donkey. Also, you can't put a blanket on it at all. And to remove the mardas, this saddlecloth, whether you remove it from a donkey or a sus, that's also because it has no distress if you keep it on, and therefore there's no real head to take it off. For ukuf also, a saddle itself is also bein little bein loniach, bein lechamor, bein lasus. Okay, let's see the detail. It says the Mishnah Berurah Chavtes. Mutzalitein mardas hainu sheloi lotzeis l'shus rabim ki im sheyeh b'chotze, because you can't go out into l'shus rabim with this saddle. This saddlecloth. Hainu the mishum zeh lo yichashin l'tircha b'Shabbos. Because what's that going on, Lamed? Mutzalitein mardas ala chamor mipnei atzina. Hainu the mishum zeh lo yichashin l'tircha b'Shabbos. It's got a need. You're keeping the animal warm, and therefore it's not considered a tircha, an unnecessary effort for you, because you're doing it so that your animal does not get cold. Or b'vad, we said shelo yiksherenu. Says the Mishnah Berurah, hainu afilu b'kesher she'eino shel kayama, even a temporary knot, even that is not allowed. And then we said also litein aval al asus, given the less late tsar tzina oscillating, but you can't put it on a horse. Why not? Mishum dahav tircha shel tzarech, because that's an unnecessary effort on your part. V'ayim be'al grosha kosev. The Ladas Rashi gam al asus v'gam al chol ha'behemas mutar litzin mirdas b'chotzeh. They say in your chotzeh, where there's no concern of a reshus harabim, then you're allowed to put this saddlecloth on. Because sometimes horses can also be cold and other animals. That's all just your general rules. But if it's very cold, and you see that the cold is harmful, is dangerous for the sus, there's lots of flies, and it's causing distress for the horse. You can put this saddlecloth on the horse, or indeed any other item of clothing. And it's therefore no different to a chamor. It's nothing special necessarily about a chamor. It's just that he feels the cold more than other animals. So you can put this blanket or saddlecloth on the animal. Just make sure that you don't lean on the animal, because then you've got problems with mishtamish b'alei chaim. Okay, now just one interesting point. If you look at footnote 10, very interesting raya for the Mishnah Shlomo Zalman brings. In footnote 10, he says, from the fact that you see that you're allowed to put a saddlecloth or a blanket on a chamar, even though this ukuf is this saddle itself is a klisha melachta le'issa. Shari also lirkev chamar b'Shabbos, even though that it's you can't ride it on Shabbos. Therefore it's a klisha melachta le'issa. The gama chamar ain't a dova nitl b'Shabbos, and so too the chamar itself is not something which you should really be moving on Shabbos. Hachiach gegon misham zaman Orach shemutel letalsa klisha melachta le'issa letzorech gufay shel kli acher shemelachta le'issa. That's very interesting. So you're allowed to take an item of klisha melachta le'issa, i.e. this saddle, for the benefit of the tzorech gufay. What does that mean? Even for another klisha melachta le'issa. So you're taking the saddle, which is a klisha melachta le'issa, for the benefit of another klisha melachta le'issa, which is basically the donkey. Okay. Ulahosir, you lamed gimel. So you're allowed to remove the mirdas, this cloth, this saddlecloth, blanket from the donkey, even from a horse. To have a tircha shel tzorech. Sorry, lamed gimel. What's that saying? Lamed gimel. Ulahosir mirdas b'Shabbos beimin achamar beimin asus also. Sorry, you're not allowed to. Why not? To have a tircha shel tzorech. Because to remove it from the back of the animal is unnecessary effort on your part. Even if the animal has now warmed up, still there's no harm in keeping it on. It just will stay warmer, and therefore it's an unnecessary effort for you to take it off. What's that going on? Olahasim redas for Shabbos is asa. Bein min asus and obey min achamar, we said. Says the Mishmur, I'm be'alacha. Okay. Bein little atam kanal in mirdas. Mashikosa bein loniach atam the kiven the einam mischamim rak ma'at have a tzirch shel tzirch. By putting it on, it will only heat up the animal, warm it up a little bit, and therefore it's a tzirch shel tzirch. Again, this is way short of any tsar b'alei chaim. This is not a problem. If it's tsar b'alei chaim, then it'll be okay. But this is just for an extra little bit of warmth. It's not in so much distress, and therefore it's not allowed. It's a tzirch shel tzirch. Okay, iftes. Ukuf. So this saddle, shal gabe hachamar, sheba min derech. He's just come back from a long walk. And now it's very hot, the animal, and you need to take the ukuf, the saddle, off to cool down the animal. Lo yitlenu biyodei. Don't do it directly with your hands. Elamatir hachevel mitachtov. Just undo the ropes which tie it onto the animal. And then you bring it into the chotzeh, and it will just fall off by itself. Says the Mishnah Berurah, use Sif Cotton Lamed Vav. Lo yitlenu biyodei. Even though there is an oineg, a delight for the animal if you remove it, because it's very hot. But since there is no alleviation of tsar, therefore it's also to move it. And we've already learned this in the previous sif, but because of the sefer that tells you to undo the knots, the ropes, and it will just fall off by itself, that's the chiddush, that's why it's being repeated here. Okay, Yud. Ein toilin lechamar truskel. You're not allowed to hang a truskel on a donkey. What is that? Pirush. Kli shel arava klufa mechusa ba'ar. It's a kli made out of woven aravas, willows, which is then covered by leather. But savaro, on the neck of the donkey, litein ma'acholoi, to put food into it. It's like a food bag which is hanging around the neck of the donkey. You can't put that on Shabbos. But if you've got small animals, and it's difficult for them to eat from the ground, they can have this food bag around their necks in a chotzer. But they shouldn't go out with it because it's a problem of hotzah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Yosef Kotel Zayin, but Savaroi, Dechol Midi she'ein el letanug lebehema havash tirchash letzerich va'asa. And therefore, it's a tirchash letzerich. It's not really ein el letanug lebehema. This is just for additional pleasure for the animal, and therefore it's considered tirchash letzerich for you. Ein yotzin afilu im hayatol alevi b'yayim. Even if you were to put this food bag on the animal from before Shabbos, it's still called a masu, you can't do it. Okay, Yud Aleph. Lo yetze asus biznav shual. Now this is pretty much just like a brisa in the Gemara Shabbos Daf Nun Gimel. The Mechaber says this. Lo yetze hasus biznav shual shetolim bein einov. They would, to ward off Ayin Hara, Shaletishla Ayin Hara, they would take the tail of a shul, of a fox, and they would hang it around the head, the eyes of the horse to prevent it getting Ayin Hara. That was a practice they were doing those days. So either way, a horse can't go out with that foxtail around its head. Nor with like a red cloth, a crimson cloth around the decorating the animal for noi. V'lo izim, nor can goats go out bekis shebadadehem, with some sort of pouch around their teats. Shekoshrim oisom, that you tie it shelo yisartu dadehem bakotzim, that they shouldn't get scratched by thorns. V'lo para bachasoim, nor should a cow go out with a muzzle shebepiha on its mouth. Shechos min piha, you muzzle up the mouth. Shelo tire besodas acherim, that it won't graze in other people's fields, because all of these are masui. V'lo kol behema besandal shenalim b'ragleh shelo tinogev, nor should they go out with special types of shoes, clogs or something, that their feet won't get knocked. But an animal can go out with a bandage on its wound, or a kashkashim shal gabe hashever, or with splints if they've got a fracture. And they're like boards, splints that you put against the bone, which is to keep it together. And this with a placenta, which is a little bit emerged from the animal and it's a bit suspended. It shouldn't go out with that. You can stuff. You can imagine a bell which has got a clapper inside, so you put cloth there, and that sort of stops it from ringing. So you can stuff a bell or matay b'chotzer, and then it can walk in the chotzer, so it won't make a noise. But you shouldn't go out with this bell around its neck, which is stopped up. Even though it's stopped up, whether it's on the neck or whether it's on the ksus of the animal. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, b'znav shual. So you can't put this fox's tail around its neck, b'chol elo around its eyes, b'chol elo hatam if she'ein b'hem tzarich l'shmiras gufan v'havik kamasui. It's not really an item of clothing. These are not protective, and therefore it's considered a masui. By the way, that we will see in Mishnah later on in Yud Zayin, I think, that we talk about an animal going out with a kamiyah, with an amulet. So that's considered different. This, I guess, is less tried and tested. So you can't go out because it's considered a masui. Levad misandal shenalim beragli abehema. Aside from the clogs or the shoes that you want to put on the animal's feet, the concern with that is that it might fall off and you might come to carry it. The pouch which protects the dadim, the concern is that it might not be well connected and it might fall off. And then you might come to carry. So in other words, all of the items listed in Yud Aleph, the concern is that it's ein lohem shmiras gufon. It doesn't protect the actual body of the animal, and therefore it's a masui. Apart, and the other one or two items here are mentioned because they might slip off, and you might come to carry the shoes and the protective pouch around the dadin of the animal. Okay, mem, sif cotton mem. V'loi izim. Nor should goats go out with these protective pouches. Ein el b'sif cotton chaftal ad mashikosav nisham. Okay, besandal with these shoes. V'nirali. V'nira she'ein bichlal zeh habarzel she'koivim beragli asusim u'mato. It's not the what they call the metal hooves that you nail into the hoof of the shore. What are they called? The horseshoe. Yeah, a horseshoe. Is there a special word for it? What? It's got a name, I think. A horseshoe. I can't think of it. Okay, whatever it is. But the horseshoe the metal ring, the horseshoe that you nail in to the foot of the animal, that is firmly fixed, so they were not worried about that. We're talking about some sort of shoe type clog or something that you put on the animal's feet. Okay, membase or poikek. You stop up the clapper, which is inside the bell, but semer with wool or with material. But otherwise the bell is going to be ringing, and therefore it's a problem of mashmiya kol. Okay, good. Mem gimel. Lo seitze, avlo seitze. This bell around its neck, you can do it in the chotzer, but not in the Rishus Harabim. Why not? Because if it's walking in the Rishus Harabim with this bell around its neck, it looks like it's on the way to the marketplace. You're going to sell it. But there are some animals where you're not really worried about going to the market to sell it. With cats, v'oifos and birds, you don't normally sell it in the marketplace. But with a bell around its neck, if it's stopped up, then that would be okay to go out in the Rishus Harabim. With a smug mashma the osa af be'elu says mishum masu. The smug says no, even that is a problem of masu. V'ayim b'magen avram be'eli rabba. V'da to kol hanach do'amrinim b'mehema the osa lot says Rishus Harabim mishum masu. B'chotze shari v'afilu imenim ureves. In a chotze it would be okay even if it's not mu'urav. Or the Indian karmelis yesh deyas bein ha'achreinim. Yesh matirim v'yesh aisrim. Well, the Indian Rishus Harabim shelanu bevada yesh lizoh. For us, if you got a Rishus Harabim, you certainly should be careful and try and avoid it. V'yesh possess sofik isotera, because they're involved in a sofik isotera. K'meshe bi'ativ be'halacha. And when it comes to things which the concern is you might come to carry, it might fall off and you come to carry it, they agree that it's also in a karmelis. That it looks like you might come to sell it, then it's even though in a movi it's also because a lot of people are there. They're unsure about this. They put on some sort of clothes so they don't get dirty. Okay, let's just do one more. Sif Yud Gimel. Ein hagamel yotze b'mutul teles. A camel should not go out with a mutul. Yud Beis. Sorry. Lo yotze b'chosam. That an animal should not go out with a chosam. So we had this the other day with the eved. It's like a necklace with a badge, saying who you are, like a tag. Lo teitze b'chosam. Bein shul b'tzavara, bein shul b'chsusa. Whether it's tied on its neck or whether it's on the clothes of the animal. Says the Mishnah Mura, bein shul b'chsusa, the afshu orach, even though it's woven in, are you tofur b'chsusa, or even stitched in, dilma delekla mechesh dilma matav asu. Therefore, there's no concern you might take it off and come to carry. Nevertheless, it's still asa. Afilu hachi asa the gazru orug atu ein orug. Chazal will geizer orug atu ein orug. All right, one more. Yud Gimel. Ein hagamol yotze b'mutul teles. Gamol shouldn't go out with the mutul teles. What is that? Who come in kar cotton. It's like a small cushion. Shenois in tachas nova. You put under its tail. Afilu kshur lebiznova. Even if it's tied on properly. Elim kein hois kshur biznova. unless it was tied onto the zon of ubechat totorchoi, also the hump of the animal, or it's on its placenta. So you can't put this cushion on the camel. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Memvav, the concern is it might fall off and you'll come to carry it. But when it's tied on to the tail and the hump of the animal, then mahadik shapir, it's very firmly fitted, and it won't fall off. So too on the placenta, given the koevla, since it's painful, you're not going to take it away because otherwise it will cause distress to the animal and therefore it won't take it away. That's the hump of the camel. Okay, say that. We'll leave it there.